For more than a decade, my family has consistently excluded me from every vacation. They blew up in rage when I took a completely free holiday, leaving them out. Can you imagine spending 12 years watching your own family jet set across the globe, flaunting their perfect trips online, trips you were deliberately excluded from? Well, I did. And when I finally got my chance to turn the tables, I didn't just walk away, I took the family who chose me on the trip of a lifetime and watched my biological family implode. For as long as I can remember, my family had this thing. This tradition. Every single year, they'd go on these enormous, wildly extravagant trips. Last year, it was 2 glorious weeks in Hawaii. The year before that, a 3-week adventure exploring Europe. And of course, they had their exclusive little club, a group chat called Family Adventures, where they'd plan every single detail. My mom, my dad, my sister Katie, my brother Josh, and his wife Mariana, everyone was in it. Everyone, that is, except me. I only found out about the Hawaii trip when my mom posted a dozen picture-perfect family vacation photos on Facebook. Sun-kissed smiles, pristine beaches. Someone in the comments, bless their heart, asked, "Where's your other daughter?" My mom's reply? Oh, she had to work. The stinging truth? I didn't have to work. Nobody had even told me they were going. This wasn't a one-off incident, a simple oversight. This had been my life, my agonizing reality, since I was 16. Disney World at 17? No room in the hotel. A Caribbean cruise at 21? We forgot to book your ticket. Every single time, a new excuse. We thought you were busy with school. Or the classic, you don't even like boats. My personal favorite, the one that really twisted the knife, Katie really needed sister time with mom. It was always something, always a reason why I wasn't there, why there was no space for me. But here's the thing. While my own parents were busy crafting excuses, someone did notice. Someone saw me. My dad's sister, my Aunt Rita. She started inviting me to absolutely everything her family did. Sunday dinners that felt more like a warm embrace than a meal. Movie nights filled with laughter. Even their small, humble family vacations. Her husband, Tom, treats me like I'm their second daughter, and their kid, Bella? She calls me her big sister. They didn't just invite me, they included me. They made me feel like I belonged. Then came my college graduation. A huge milestone. My parents? They didn't show up. They were at Josh's girlfriend's birthday party, a girl they barely knew. But Rita, Tom, and Bella? They drove 4 hours, braving traffic and long distances, just to watch me walk across that stage. For 30 seconds. They were there, beaming, cheering me on. That day, it solidified something deep inside me. Last month, I got my bonus at work. And when I say bonus, I mean a life-changing bonus. $20,000. I saw that number hit my account, and I knew, instantly, exactly what I was going to do. I booked the most insane vacation package you could imagine to Turks and Caicos. We're talking a private villa, butler service, a yacht rental, the whole 9 yards. 7 nights at a resort that probably costs more per night than most people make in a week. I called Rita. My voice was buzzing with a mix of excitement and a little bit of mischievous glee. You, Tom, and Bella need to request time off for next month, I told her. Don't tell them why. Just that it's important. She trusted me, implicitly. And she did it. The day before we were scheduled to leave, I drove to their house with all the documents. When Bella saw the tickets, her little face lit up, and she screamed with pure joy. Tom, a man who rarely showed emotion, actually teared up. Rita just kept repeating, I can't accept this. It's too much. But I looked her right in the eyes, my voice steady, filled with a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. You guys are my real family, I said. This is happening. The next morning, we flew first class. None of them had ever done that. Bella was practically glued to the window, taking pictures of everything, the clouds, the tiny cars below, even the fancy snacks. Tom, usually so reserved, ordered champagne just because he could. And Rita? She held my hand during takeoff, her eyes glistening. "You're the daughter I always wanted," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. My heart swelled. We were 3 days into paradise, soaking up the sun, laughing, making memories, when my phone started exploding. Katie had, predictably, posted on Instagram about their annual family trip planning meeting. Someone, unaware of the deep chasms in my family, commented, "Is your sister going this year?" Katie, with her usual dismissive tone, replied, "She never wants to come to these things." Oh, but here's where the carefully constructed facade began to crack. The problem was, Rita's sister follows Katie. And she knows about all the trips they've deliberately excluded me from. So, she commented, very casually, "That's funny, because she's in Turks and Caicos right now with Rita's family." And just like that, all hell broke loose. My mom called me 15 times in an hour. My dad sent me paragraphs, long, rambling texts about how I was betraying the family by taking outsiders on expensive trips. Josh left me a voicemail, his voice dripping with condescension, calling me pathetic for trying to buy Rita's love. Mariana, ever the opportunist, texted to ask how much the trip cost, because she knew Josh would want to know. I ignored them all. Every single one. Every buzzing notification, every accusatory word, every desperate attempt to control my narrative. But then Katie did something truly, unforgivably stupid. She messaged Rita directly. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she wrote, her words venomous, "taking advantage of my sister like this, making her pay for your vacation because you can't afford it yourselves." That's when I snapped. Rita screenshotted it and sent it to me. My blood ran cold, a wave of white-hot fury washing over me. I called Katie, my hands trembling, and put her on speakerphone so everyone in Rita's family, gathered around me, could hear. "What is your problem?" I demanded, my voice dangerously low. She immediately launched into a tirade about how I was wasting money on random relatives when my real family struggled to pay for their trips. "You guys went to Hawaii without me." I cut her off, my voice rising. "You went to Europe without me. You've excluded me from every single family vacation for 12 years. Her response was chilling, almost bored. "You wouldn't have enjoyed those trips anyway. You're too uptight." "Oh, really?" I shot back, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. "Rita came to my college graduation. Where were you?" She went quiet. A beat of stunned silence. Then she tried to pivot. "A week after. Josh needed help moving that weekend." "Josh moved 3 months after graduation, Katie," I stated, each word like ice. She tried another angle, desperate now. "This is different. You're just rubbing our faces in how much money you have now." I actually laughed. A hollow, bitter sound that held no humor. "No, Katie. I'm spending my money on people who actually want me around. Enjoy planning your next family trip. I'm sure you'll have a great time without me, just like always." Before she could utter another word, I hung up. Later, my mom texted that I was no longer welcome at Christmas, unless I apologized for being deliberately hurtful. I simply texted back, "That's fine. Rita already invited me to theirs." The rest of that trip? Absolutely perfect. Bella learned to snorkel, her eyes wide with wonder. Tom caught a huge fish, grinning like a kid. Rita and I stayed up late talking for hours on the beach, the ocean breeze a soothing balm. When we got home, my dad was waiting at my apartment. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed, wearing that disappointed dad expression he does so well. He didn't ask to come in, didn't even say hello. He just launched right into it, accusing me of embarrassing the family and hurting my mother's feelings with my little stunt. I just dug my keys out, unlocked my door, and walked inside. He followed, as if invited, which he absolutely was not. He closed the door behind him and started his whole spiel about family loyalty. He went on about how Rita had always been jealous of my mom, how she'd been manipulating me for years. He actually said, and I quote, "Rita saw an opportunity to turn you against your real family, and she took it." I dropped my suitcase with a thud. I just stood there, listening to him rewrite history, twisting narratives, painting Rita as some evil puppet master. He kept talking about how Rita always wanted what my mom has, how she was bitter about something from years ago, how this whole vacation was probably her idea to make my parents look bad. I let him go for about 5 minutes. Part of me just wanted to hear how far he'd take it, how deep the delusion ran. Then I cut him off mid-sentence. "Dad," I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, considering the hurricane inside me. "Why wasn't I invited to Hawaii?" I asked about Europe, the cruise, Disney World, every single trip they'd taken without me. His face did this weird thing where he actually looked confused, like he genuinely couldn't remember deliberately excluding me from all those vacations. It was almost worse than if he'd been smug about it. He blinked at me like I'd asked him to solve a complex math problem. Then he recovered fast. He switched gears. Said those trips were planned around other people's schedules, and I was always busy with work or school anyway. They didn't want to bother me. I pulled out my phone. Rita had sent me screenshots. Pictures of the Family Adventures group chat I was never added to. Facebook posts where Mom said I had to work when I didn't. I showed him the pattern of lies, 12 years worth, all lined up on my phone screen. His face hardened. He handed my phone back, his eyes now cold. He switched tactics again. "You're being dramatic," he said, dismissively. "Holding grudges over nothing. We always assumed you didn't want to come because you never asked about the trips." I stared at him, incredulous. How was I supposed to ask about trips I didn't even know existed? He ignored me, kept going about how I was making a big deal out of normal family stuff. "Dad," I said, my voice slow, deliberate. "I'm done having this conversation. You need to leave." He didn't move. "We need to resolve this as a family," he insisted, which apparently meant me apologizing to everyone and pretending the last 12 years never happened. He actually said, "If you just apologize for the vacation and for being disrespectful, we can move past this." I pulled out my phone again. Called Rita. Put her on speaker before it even started ringing. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm. "Rita," I said, my voice clear and firm. "My dad is in my apartment, and he's refusing to leave. Can Tom come over?" I knew my dad wouldn't make a scene in front of his brother-in-law. Rita started to say Tom didn't need to bother, but I cut her off. "Please." My dad's whole expression changed. Disappointment turned to outright fury. His face got red, blotchy. He pointed a shaking finger at my phone. "You're choosing sides," he bellowed, his voice vibrating with rage. "You're destroying the family by calling Rita. You're proving everything I just said about her manipulating you." Then, finally, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames on my wall shook. My neighbor peeked out her door, eyes wide. I waved, a forced smile on my face. "Everything's fine." I called out, and then locked mine. 20 minutes later, Tom showed up. Even though Rita told him not to bother, he knocked, identified himself, and when I opened the door, he just walked through my apartment, calmly checking the locks on the windows, making sure the deadbolt worked. He asked if my dad had a key. "No," I said, "I never gave them one." Tom nodded. "Good." He offered to stay on my couch. I said no, but I appreciated it more than I could say. He pulled me into a hug, a solid, comforting presence. "You're my daughter, too," he murmured into my hair. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, even though it's hard and scary." I hugged him back, feeling the tears welling up, but I held it together. He stayed for another hour, just sitting with me, not really talking, just being there. When he left, he made me promise to call if anything else happened. I locked the door behind him, a profound sense of gratitude washing over me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything my dad said, wondering if maybe I really was being too hard on them. Was I the problem? For hours, I stared at my ceiling, the questions circling. Then, around 3 a.m., it hit me. My college graduation. Sitting in that audience, watching other families take pictures, celebrate, while my parents were at some birthday party for Josh's girlfriend. Rita drove 4 hours each way just to watch me walk across the stage for 30 seconds. My parents couldn't drive 20 minutes. The self-doubt vanished, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I finally fell asleep around 4. My alarm went off at 7 o'clock. I felt like garbage, but I dragged myself up, making coffee. My phone buzzed. A text from Katie. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity, and a morbid fascination, got the better of me. It was a massive wall of text. She accused me of always being difficult and causing problems. She listed examples from when we were kids, crying at her birthday party at 6, not wanting to share toys with Josh at 8. She twisted every single memory to make me the villain, even when I was just a kid existing. She claimed I was always jealous of her relationship with mom and made family dinners awkward by being quiet and sullen. I read it twice. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She was making things up, or twisting normal, innocent kid behavior into evidence that I was some kind of problem child who deserved to be excluded. I didn't respond, but I screenshotted every single message and sent them to Rita. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Rita was already talking before I even said hello. We spent the next hour going through Katie's messages line by line. Rita, with her clear-eyed wisdom, pointed out every way Katie was gaslighting me, trying to manipulate the narrative, to make me doubt myself. Rita remembered those events differently. That birthday party where I cried? Rita was there. She remembered Katie's friends being actively mean to me, making fun of my dress. The toy thing with Josh? It happened right after he broke my favorite doll on purpose, and my parents made me apologize to him. Rita got angrier and angrier as we talked. This is classic scapegoat behavior, she fumed, her voice tight. One family member gets blamed for everything so the others don't have to look at their own actions. Then she told me something else. Her sister saw more comments on Katie's Instagram post. Apparently, extended family members were weighing in now. Some were defending me, saying they'd always wondered why I was never at family events. One cousin asked why I wasn't in the family group chat. Another aunt thought it was weird I missed so many holidays. This, apparently, was making my parents furious because now people were asking uncomfortable questions instead of just accepting my mom's flimsy excuses. Rita sounded almost happy about it, and it made me feel a lot less guilty for causing drama. We finally hung up. I was running late for work, but I felt better. Rita saw it. She got it. I was at my desk for maybe 2 hours when my phone rang again. It was my dad's number. I almost didn't answer, but something, an instinct, made me pick up. It was my mom. Crying. She was using my dad's phone because I'd been ignoring her calls from her own number. She was sobbing about how I'd turned the whole family against them, how relatives were asking her why they excluded me, and she didn't know what to say. She kept repeating that I was making them look like bad parents and being cruel by not defending them to extended family. I let her talk for a minute, the tears doing nothing to soften my resolve. Then I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, "Mom, I didn't turn anyone against you. You did that yourselves by lying about me for 12 years. She started to argue. We never lied. We just didn't want to burden you with trips you wouldn't enjoy. That's a lie, too, I said, and I hung up. For the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel crazy for being hurt by their behavior. That afternoon, Josh left me a voicemail. I could tell immediately my parents had written a script for him. He sounded like he was reading. He talked about family forgiveness and moving forward together and healing old wounds. He never once said what they did wrong. Never acknowledged they excluded me. Never offered any kind of actual apology. It was all just generic stuff about how family is important and we need to work through our differences. The whole message was 5 minutes long, and he sounded uncomfortable the entire time, like he knew this was garbage, but he was doing it anyway. I texted him back with just one question: "Did you know I wasn't invited to Hawaii?" He didn't respond for 6 hours. I thought he was just going to ignore me, but finally, my phone buzzed. His text just said, "Mom said you had to work and nothing else." That told me everything I needed to know about whether he was willing to see the truth. Sunday came, and Rita invited me to their regular dinner, just like always. I'd been going to these dinners for years. They were the most normal, comforting part of my week. Bella was so excited when I got there because she'd gotten all the photos from our vacation printed, and she wanted to show me every single one. We spread them out on the dining room table, giggling, while Rita made dinner. There were pictures of Bella snorkeling, Tom on the yacht, all of us laughing on the beach. Tom's sunburn in the photos was hilarious, and we all laughed at how red he got on the second day. He kept saying he used sunscreen. Clearly, not enough. Rita made her special lasagna, the smell filling the house with warmth. We were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Rita got up to answer it and came back with her sister, Virginia, Virginia's husband, and their kids. Virginia walked straight over to where I was sitting and pulled me into this tight hug. "I'm so glad you finally stood up to your parents," she whispered fiercely. "I've watched them treat you like an afterthought for years. Someone needed to call them out, and I'm proud of you for doing it, even though it's hard." Virginia pulled back and sat down with us, grabbing a piece of garlic bread. "My mom," she said, looking at me, "called me 2 days ago, asking me to talk some sense into you. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth, already guessing that conversation. Virginia waved her hand dismissively. "I set your mom straight. I told her the only sense to be talked was into parents who systematically excluded their daughter for 12 years and then got mad when she found a real family." Tom actually laughed. Bella, ever curious, asked what systematically meant. Rita explained it meant doing something over and over on purpose. Bella nodded like that made perfect sense. Virginia's husband chimed in, saying he never understood why my parents treated me differently and he was glad I finally did something about it. Their kids, young as they were nodding along. Even they noticed something was wrong. The whole table went quiet for a second. I felt this weird pressure building in my chest, a mix of overwhelming emotion. These people weren't related to me by blood, not in the way my parents were, but they had been paying attention to my life for years. They noticed when I was excluded, and they cared about it more than my own parents did. Virginia reached over and squeezed my hand. I had to blink really fast because I was not going to cry at the dinner table. Rita saw my face and quickly, gracefully, changed the subject to dessert, asking who wanted ice cream with their pie. Everyone started talking about dessert preferences, and the moment passed, but I was still feeling incredibly emotional. After dinner, as we were clearing plates, Bella came up to me. "Are you going to our house for Christmas this year?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. The question caught me off guard because I hadn't officially committed yet. I looked over at Rita, who was scraping plates at the sink. "I'd love to spend Christmas with you guys," I told Bella, "if the invitation still stands." Rita dropped the plate she was holding back into the sink with a clatter and spun around. "Of course, the invitation stands," she exclaimed, her eyes wide, brimming with tears. "I've been hoping you'd say yes." She immediately started talking about the menu, asking what my favorite Christmas foods were. Tom joked that Rita had been planning this Christmas in her head since July. Bella started jumping up and down, talking about making cookies and watching Christmas movies. Virginia said she'd bring her famous sweet potato casserole. Suddenly, everyone was planning this whole Christmas celebration around me. I stood there, a stack of dirty plates in my hand, feeling like I had finally found exactly where I was supposed to be. The next few days went by pretty normally. Work. Home. Avoiding my phone when I saw texts from my biological family. A week after that dinner at Rita's, my phone buzzed during my lunch break. A text from my mom. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message said they were moving forward with their Christmas plans without me since I'd made my choice clear. No apology, no acknowledgement of anything they did wrong, just confirmation that I was still excluded, and somehow, it was my fault for not apologizing. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to type out this huge, scathing response, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I just typed back, "Okay, have a good holiday," and hit send. I put my phone down and finished my sandwich. My phone buzzed again an hour later. It was Rita asking if I was okay. She must have talked to my mom, or somehow found out. I told her I was fine. She responded immediately, saying she was coming to pick me up after work. When I got outside at 5, Rita's car was already there. I climbed in, and she just reached over and squeezed my hand. She didn't ask me to talk about it or tell me how I should feel. She just reminded me, with that simple, silent gesture, that I have a family who actually wants me around. We drove to her house. Tom was making dinner. Bella ran up and hugged me like she always does. Everything felt normal and safe, and I realized this is what family is supposed to feel like. Work became a welcome distraction. I threw myself into projects, finding solace in productivity. My boss stopped by my desk one afternoon. "You seem lighter somehow," she observed. "More focused, more engaged." I told her I'd been working through some family stuff, and she nodded, understanding. Later that day, getting coffee in the break room, I realized she was right. Standing up for myself had been painful, yes, but it had also lifted this immense weight I didn't even know I was carrying. I wasn't constantly wondering why my family didn't want me around anymore. I knew why, and I knew it wasn't actually about me. The next morning, scrolling social media during breakfast, Katie's latest post popped up. A bunch of photos from what she called the family Christmas planning meeting. My mom, dad, Josh, and his wife, all sitting around the dining room table with notebooks and calendars. Katie had tagged everyone in the photos except me. She even tagged some cousins who weren't in the pictures. The exclusion was so deliberate, it was almost funny in its audacity. It stung for just a second, that familiar, sharp feeling of being left out. But then I remembered, these were the same people who went to Hawaii without telling me. The same people who chose a girlfriend's birthday party over my college graduation. I was planning Christmas with people who drove 4 hours to watch me walk across that stage. I closed the app and finished my breakfast, that fleeting sting already fading. That weekend, I was back at Rita's house helping Bella with a school project. We were building some kind of volcano for her science class. Papier-mâché was everywhere, a glorious mess. Bella got this serious look on her face. "Can I call you my sister instead of my cousin?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Because that's what you really are to me anyway." I told her I'd be honored, my voice thick, and she threw her arms around me, getting papier-mâché paste all over both of us. Rita walked in, saw us hugging, and her eyes got all watery. She didn't say anything, but I could see what it meant to her. Tom came in, asked what he missed, and Bella proudly announced I was officially her sister now. Tom grinned. "I always knew you were part of the family," he said, his voice warm. We finished the volcano, ordered pizza, and everything felt right. Monday morning, eating lunch at my desk, the receptionist called. "There's someone here to see you," she said, her voice uncertain. "It's your father." My stomach dropped, but I took a breath, calming myself. Is he causing problems? I asked. No, she said, but he's insisting he needs to talk to you. I told her to let security know and that I didn't want to see him. There was a pause. Okay, she said. I'll handle it. I could hear her talking to someone in the background. She came back on the line. Security is with him now. Are you sure you don't want to see him? I said no again. Clearer this time. I realized I had the power to enforce my boundaries. I didn't have to see him just because he showed up. The receptionist said she'd take care of it and hung up. I sat at my desk trying to focus, but my hands were shaking. About 10 minutes later, the receptionist called back. Your father left, she said, but he left a note for you with security. Do you want me to bring it up? I said, yes. A few minutes later, she arrived with a sealed envelope. I thanked her. She gave me this sympathetic look before heading back downstairs. I opened the envelope. Inside was a piece of paper covered in my dad's familiar, sprawling handwriting. The first line said, "You're breaking your mother's heart and destroying the family." I didn't read the rest. I folded the paper back up, walked to the break room, and threw it in the trash. I was done accepting blame for their choices. That weekend, Tom called. Want to go fishing with me on Saturday morning? He asked. I usually go alone, but I thought you might like to come along. I'd never been fishing in my life, but I said yes right away. Something about the invitation felt important, like he was showing me I was part of his regular life now, not just the big vacation moments. Saturday morning, I met him at the lake at 6 a.m. It was cold and foggy. I was wearing clothes Rita lent me because I didn't own anything appropriate for fishing. Tom handed me a thermos of coffee and didn't make fun of my borrowed gear. We got the boat loaded and headed out onto the water. The lake was quiet, just the sound of the motor and a few birds. Tom cut the engine, and we drifted for a while before he started setting up the fishing rods. He showed me how to cast, his hands gently guiding mine. He was patient when I messed up and tangled the line. He just untangled it and told me to try again. We sat in comfortable silence for a long time, just the sound of water lapping against the boat. Then Tom started telling me stories about when Rita and my dad were kids, how they used to build forts in the woods, and Rita always let my dad be the leader even though she was older. He mentioned summer trips to their grandparents' farm, how my dad would get jealous when their parents praised Rita for being responsible. Tom said, your dad was always competitive with Rita, always trying to prove he was just as good or better. He said, their parents favored Rita because she was calmer and more helpful, and your dad never really got over that. Tom looked at me, his gaze thoughtful. Maybe, he suggested, maybe your parents excluded you because you reminded them of Rita. Or maybe because they saw how much Rita loved you, and it triggered something in your dad. The observation hit me hard. It actually made perfect, chilling sense. Katie looks exactly like my mom, same blonde hair, sharp features. Josh acts like my dad, competitive, needing to be the center of attention. But everyone has always told me I'm just like Rita. Calm, thoughtful, good at listening. Maybe that's exactly why they pushed me away. Maybe every time they looked at me, they saw my dad's sister instead of their daughter. I sat with that realization while Tom reeled in a fish. He didn't push me to talk about it, just kept fishing and telling stories. We stayed out until noon. I caught 2 fish. Tom caught 5. On the drive back, he told me we should do this again next month. Thanksgiving came, and I spent it at Rita's house. Virginia and her husband and kids showed up around noon with 3 pies and a huge bowl of mashed potatoes. The house was full of noise and laughter and the delicious smell of turkey. Rita started a new tradition. We went around the table, and everyone said what they were grateful for. When it was my turn, I said I was grateful for family who chooses to show up. Bella immediately added that she was grateful I was her sister now. Rita started crying happy tears right into her mashed potatoes and had to excuse herself to get tissues. Tom squeezed my hand under the table. Virginia's kids talked about being grateful for video games and pie, and everyone laughed. The whole day felt easy and natural. No one walking on eggshells, no one worrying about being forgotten. I wasn't anxiously checking my phone, waiting for a text that never came. I was just here, fully present, with people who actually wanted me around. Later that evening, when I was home, Virginia texted me a screenshot. My mom had sent a group text to the extended family talking about how hard the holiday was when family members abandon their roots and forget where they came from. The message was clearly about me without mentioning my name. Virginia said she wanted me to see it, but that I shouldn't let it ruin my day. The weird thing is, I wasn't even angry. I just felt sad for my mom. Sad that she spent Thanksgiving crafting guilt trip messages instead of enjoying her family. Several relatives responded to my mom's text, and Virginia screenshotted those, too. My dad's cousin said she'd seen how I was treated over the years and thought my mom needed to look in a mirror. Rita's brother mentioned he noticed I was never invited to family trips and always wondered why. Another cousin pointed out that Rita's family seemed pretty happy to include me in everything. My mom didn't respond to any of them. Virginia texted me a few days later saying my mom had stopped posting on social media completely. She'd heard my mom was upset no one was taking her side. Apparently, she expected everyone to agree that I was being ungrateful and difficult. Instead, people were asking her uncomfortable questions about why she excluded me for 12 years. The first week of December, my phone rang. It was Josh. For just a second, I thought maybe he was calling to apologize, to finally acknowledge what happened. Instead, he asked if I was really not coming to Christmas this year. He said, "Mom is so upset. Can't you just pretend everything is fine for her sake? Just come to Christmas and act normal and everyone can move on." I told Josh I was done pretending. I spent 12 years pretending it didn't hurt to be excluded from every family vacation and every important event. I pretended it was okay that they went to Hawaii without telling me. I pretended it didn't matter that they chose a girlfriend's birthday over my college graduation. I wouldn't spend one more day pretending any of it was acceptable. Josh said I was being selfish and making everything about me. He said Mom was struggling and I should be the bigger person. I hung up on him. And finally understood. He will never see me as anything but the problem. He'll never admit they did anything wrong. To him, I'm just difficult and ungrateful, and nothing I say will change that view. I texted Rita and told her about the call. She responded immediately, saying their loss is her gain and that she was already planning Christmas dinner with me in mind. A few days later, Rita picked me up for Christmas shopping. We headed to the big mall across town. Bella bounced in the back seat, talking a mile a minute about what she wanted to get for her dad and showing us her list written in purple marker. The mall was packed. Every store had decorations and music playing. We started in the toy section. Rita and I were laughing about a ridiculous stuffed animal that sang when Bella suddenly grabbed my hand and pointed across the aisle. My mom was standing near the checkout area, holding a shopping bag. She looked right at us, and I saw her face change. For just a second, I thought maybe she'd come over or at least wave. Instead, she turned completely around and walked fast toward the exit on the other side of the store. I watched her disappear into the crowd. I felt this weird, empty feeling in my chest. Rita squeezed my shoulder but didn't say anything. Bella tugged on my sleeve. "Why did Grandma Bonnie walk away like that?" she asked, her voice small. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't know how to explain this to a kid. Rita knelt down. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements and need space," she said gently. "And that's okay." Bella asked if Grandma was mad at me. Rita said, "Grown-up feelings are complicated, but it doesn't change how much we love Bella." Bella seemed to accept this and went back to looking at toys, but I could tell she was confused. We moved to another store, and Rita linked her arm through mine. Her loss, she murmured. I'm glad to have you. We tried on ridiculous hats in the accessory store. Bella put on a huge floppy sun hat with fake flowers. Rita wore a fuzzy winter hat with ear flaps, and I picked up a sparkly beret. We took pictures in the mirror making silly faces. Bella laughed so hard she snorted. The sadness from seeing my mom faded as we moved through the stores. We stopped at the food court and got hot chocolate piled high with whipped cream. Bella got chocolate on her nose, and Rita used a napkin to wipe it off. This is what family is supposed to feel like. No one checking their phone to see if someone else texted. No one making plans without me. We were just here, together, having fun. Rita and I split a giant pretzel, and Bella told us about her school play. We spent 2 hours going from store to store. My feet hurt, but I didn't care. I found a beautiful scarf for Rita in deep blue that matched her eyes. For Tom, I got a fancy fishing lure set he'd mentioned wanting months ago. For Bella, I found this art kit with every color marker and special paper. I also grabbed a nice candle set for Virginia and her husband because they'd been so supportive. Rita tried to peek in my shopping bags, but I hid them. No spoiling the surprise, I said. We passed a jewelry store, and Bella pressed her face against the window, looking at sparkly necklaces. Rita and I exchanged a look. We went inside. I let Bella pick out a simple silver bracelet with a heart charm. The clerk wrapped it up, and Bella carried the small bag like it was treasure. On the drive home, Bella fell asleep in the back seat, hugging her shopping bags. Rita reached over and held my hand. I'm proud of you, she said, her voice soft, for handling the situation with your mom with grace. I didn't feel very graceful, but I appreciated her saying it. 3 days before Christmas, my phone buzzed with a text from Mariana. I stared at her name on my screen for a full minute before opening it. She said she was sorry for not speaking up over the years. She wrote that she always thought the exclusion was wrong, but didn't want to cause problems with Josh's family. She said she should have said something and regretted staying quiet. I read the message 3 times, trying to figure out how I felt. Part of me wanted to be angry, but mostly I just felt tired. I texted back that I appreciated her apology, but staying silent made her complicit. I told her that watching something wrong happen and doing nothing is still a choice. She responded right away saying she accepted that and understood if I didn't want a relationship with her. She just wanted me to know she saw the truth now. I put my phone down, didn't respond again. It was something, I guess, but it didn't change 12 years of silence. Christmas Eve at Rita's house smelled like sugar and cinnamon. Bella dragged me into the kitchen where cookie dough was already spread across the counter. We spent the afternoon cutting out shapes and decorating them with colored frosting. Tom built a fire in the living room, and the whole house felt warm and cozy. Rita taught me her mom's recipe for cinnamon rolls that we'd bake in the morning. She showed me how to roll the dough just right and told me stories about making these with her mom when she was little. We watched old Christmas movies. Bella insisted on making hot chocolate from scratch with real cocoa powder. She stirred the pot carefully while Rita supervised. Tom brought in more wood for the fire and settled into his chair with a book. I curled up on the couch with a blanket, and Bella snuggled next to me. The TV played some old movie, but I was barely paying attention. I was just soaking in this feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. Around 10 o'clock, Bella started yawning, and Rita sent her up to brush her teeth. I helped clean up the kitchen, and Rita hugged me tight before I headed upstairs. I sleep in the guest room, which Rita now calls my room. She'd hung photos on the walls, including several from our Turks and Caicos trip. There was one of all 4 of us on the beach at sunset, and another of Bella and me snorkeling. My favorite was a candid shot of Rita and me laughing at dinner. I changed into pajamas and climbed into bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. The room was quiet except for the gentle creaks and groans of the house settling around me. I fell asleep, feeling completely at peace. Christmas morning, Bella burst into my room at 7, jumping on the bed. She was wearing reindeer pajamas, her hair sticking up everywhere, a whirlwind of joy. I followed her downstairs where Tom already had coffee brewing and Rita was pulling the cinnamon rolls from the oven. The smell was incredible. We ate breakfast first, even though Bella kept looking at the presents under the tree with barely contained excitement. Rita made scrambled eggs. Tom cut up fruit. Finally, we moved to the living room and started opening gifts. We went slowly, taking turns, actually watching each person open their present. Bella opened the art kit first and screamed with excitement. She immediately wanted to start drawing, and Rita had to remind her to finish opening everything else first. When Rita opened the photo album I made from our vacation, she started crying. She flipped through every page, looking at the pictures and reading the little notes I wrote. Tom got emotional, too, looking over her shoulder. Bella loved the bracelet and put it on right away, holding her wrist up to show everyone. I opened gifts from them, including a soft sweater from Rita and a new purse from Bella that she picked out herself. Then, Tom handed me a long, thin package. I unwrapped it carefully and found a fishing rod with my name engraved on the handle. Tom said he expected me to use it regularly. The gesture hit me hard. It wasn't just a gift. It was a promise that I'd be around, that I was part of their regular life, an ingrained part of their future. I hugged him and felt tears starting, but I didn't care. This was my family, and I was finally home. Around noon, Virginia showed up with Nathaniel and their kids, carrying dishes of food. She hugged me tight and whispered that she was glad I was here, where I belonged. The house filled up fast with people setting plates and silverware on the big dining table. Virginia brought a huge pan of green bean casserole, and Nathaniel carried in a turkey he'd smoked himself. Their kids ran around with Bella, showing them all her new presents. Rita assigned everyone jobs, and the kitchen became this organized chaos of people heating dishes and stirring pots. I helped Virginia set the table, and she told me she was proud of me for choosing myself. Nathaniel carved the turkey while Tom poured drinks for everyone. We all gathered around the table, and it was packed with people who actually wanted to be here together. No one was missing. No one got left behind or forgotten. Everyone brought something, and everyone mattered. Rita said a quick thank you for the food and the people around the table. And then we started passing dishes. The conversation flowed easy, with people laughing and telling stories. Bella sat next to me and kept putting food on my plate, saying I needed to try everything. I looked around at all these faces. This is what family dinners are supposed to feel like. My phone sat in my pocket, completely silent. I checked it once during dessert, a quick, almost unconscious gesture, and there was nothing. No texts from my mom or dad. No calls from Katie or Josh. Not even a generic Merry Christmas message. It hurt for a second, seeing that empty screen. A familiar pang. But then I looked back at the table full of people who chose to be here with me. My biological family was somewhere having their own Christmas, and they were fine without me. They probably weren't even thinking about me right now. That realization settled into my chest. Heavy and painful, but also clear. They were more interested in being right than having a relationship with me. They'd rather exclude me and defend their choice than admit they were wrong or try to fix things. The silence from my phone told me everything I needed to know about where I stood with them. After dinner, everyone helped clean up, and then we moved to the living room for coffee and more dessert. Rita pulled me aside into the hallway while everyone else was distracted. She handed me a small, wrapped box. "Open it now," she said, her eyes shining. Inside was a silver key on a simple keychain. There was a note tucked under it that said, "You always have a home here," in Rita's familiar handwriting. I looked up at her, and my eyes filled with tears. She pulled me into a hug, and I finally let myself cry for real. Not sad crying, exactly, but this profound release of everything I'd been holding. All the years of being left out, of making excuses for them, of wondering what was wrong with me. All of it came out while Rita held me and rubbed my back. She told me I was her daughter in every way that matters. And this house was my home whenever I needed it. I cried harder because I'd wanted to hear those words my whole life. When I finally stopped crying, my face was blotchy and my eyes were swollen. But I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying this immense weight for 12 years. And I finally put it down. Rita wiped my face with her sleeve, a tender gesture, and we went back to join everyone else. No one asked why my eyes were red. They just made room for me on the couch and handed me a cup of coffee. A week later, Rita threw a New Year's Eve party and invited all their friends. The house filled up with couples and families I'd never met before. A woman named Sarah introduced herself. "I've heard so much about you," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling. She mentioned that Rita talked about her second daughter all the time. Another couple came over, and the husband said Rita had showed them pictures from our vacation, and it looked amazing. I met person after person who knew stories about me. They knew about my college graduation and how Rita drove 4 hours to be there. They knew about Sunday dinners and movie nights. They'd heard about Turks and Caicos and the fishing rod Tom gave me for Christmas. These people had known about me for years, while I had no idea I was part of their conversations. Rita had been claiming me as family to everyone in her life this whole time. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, warm and grounding. I'd belonged to this family way longer than I understood. I wasn't just adopted into it a few months ago when I took them on vacation. I'd been Rita's daughter in her heart for years, and she'd been telling everyone. Tom found me standing in the corner, getting emotional. "You okay?" he asked, a gentle smile on his face. I told him I'd just realized I'd had a family this whole time and didn't fully know it. He just smiled. "We've been waiting for you to figure it out." As midnight got closer, everyone gathered in the living room with champagne glasses. Bella ran around making sure everyone had a drink, even if it was just sparkling cider. Tom turned on the TV to watch the ball drop in Times Square. Everyone counted down together. At midnight, we all cheered and toasted. Rita raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice full of hope and family. Everyone drank and hugged, and Bella jumped up and down, excited about staying up so late. She found me in the crowd and made me promise we'd go on another vacation together soon. Tom came over. "You're stuck with us now," he joked. "Whether you like it or not." I told him I'd never been happier to be stuck with anyone. The party went until almost 2 a.m. People slowly heading home. I helped Rita and Tom clean up while Bella fell asleep on the couch. When the house was finally quiet, Rita hugged me goodnight, and I drove home feeling full in a way I never had before. In January, a letter arrived from my parents' lawyer. My hands shook opening it because I expected something mean or hostile. Instead, it was just business paperwork about a family trust my grandmother set up years ago. The letter was professional and distant, explaining that they needed my signature on some documents to finalize the distribution. There was no personal message from my parents. No note saying they missed me or wanted to talk. Just legal paperwork, treating me like any other beneficiary they needed to deal with. The coldness of it somehow hurt more than if they had sent something angry. This made it clear they were moving forward with their lives, and I was just a legal obligation to handle. I put the letter on my counter and stared at it for a while. Then I looked up lawyers in my area and made some calls. I found one who handles family trust issues and made an appointment for the following week. When I told Rita about the letter, she immediately offered to come to the lawyer meetings with me. She said I shouldn't have to deal with this alone. I appreciated the offer, but something in me wanted to handle this myself. I told her I could do it, and I was surprised by how strong my voice sounded. The lawyer meeting was straightforward and professional. I explained the situation, and he reviewed the paperwork. He said it was a simple distribution and shouldn't take long to resolve. I signed what I needed to sign and let him handle communicating with my parents' lawyer. Over the next few weeks, the legal stuff moved forward quickly. My parents didn't fight me on anything or try to reduce my share or make it difficult. Everything was fair and reasonable and completed without any drama. Their lawyer sent the final paperwork, and it was done. Somehow that felt worse than if they tried to fight me or cut me out. It would have shown they cared enough to be petty or mean. Instead, they just handled it like business and moved on. Like I'm someone they used to know and now we're settling old accounts before going our separate ways forever. I started seeing a therapist in late January. Not because I was falling apart or couldn't function, but because I wanted to understand what happened and why. I wanted to make sure I didn't carry this pain into other relationships or repeat these patterns somehow. My therapist is a woman in her 50s who listens carefully and asks good questions. I tell her about the 12 years of exclusion and the vacation with Rita and everything that came after. She asks how I feel about my choice to invest in Rita's family instead of my biological one. I tell her it felt like the only real choice I had. She nods and says that choosing Rita's family was an act of self-love. She explains that I recognized who valued me and chose to invest my time and money and heart with them instead of people who repeatedly showed they didn't want me around. We talk about patterns and family dynamics and why some parents struggle to love certain children. She helps me see that my parents' behavior says everything about them and nothing about my worth. And over the next few weeks, I start to feel like I'm processing everything in a healthy way instead of just pushing it down. Valentine's Day came, and Bella showed up at my apartment with a huge card she made. It was covered in glitter and stickers and drawings of the two of us. In big letters across the front, it said, "Best Big Sister Ever," with hearts all around it. Inside, she wrote about how much she loves me and how I'm the best sister anyone could have. I hugged her tight and told her I love her, too. After she leaves, I put the card on my fridge right next to the photos from Turks and Caicos. There's one of all four of us on the beach and another of Bella and me snorkeling. Every time I walk past my fridge, I see that card and those photos, and I remember what real family looks like. A week after Valentine's Day, Rita called me and suggested we plan a trip together, just the two of us. She wants to take me to the small town where she and my dad grew up, to show me the good parts of our family history before everything got messy and complicated. We spent an evening at her kitchen table looking at old photos and planning the route. Rita points to a picture of her and my dad as kids standing in front of an old diner that apparently made the best milkshakes in 3 counties. She tells me stories about their childhood that sound almost magical, back when they were close and looked out for each other. I booked us a bed and breakfast for a long weekend in April. Rita got excited like a kid planning an adventure. In March, my boss called me into her office and told me I was getting promoted to senior analyst with a significant raise. I walked out of that meeting, buzzing with pride, and the first person I called was Rita. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear, then immediately started planning a celebration dinner. That night, Rita, Tom, and Bella took me to this nice Italian restaurant downtown. Tom ordered a bottle of wine and stood up to give a toast, telling everyone at nearby tables that his daughter just got promoted. He talked about how proud he was of the woman I'd become, how I'd shown strength and grace through difficult times. Bella added that I was the best big sister anyone could ask for, and Rita reached across the table to squeeze my hand. The waiter brought out a dessert with a candle in it, and the whole restaurant sang. I posted a simple update on social media that night, just mentioning the promotion without much detail. 2 days later, Katie texts me congratulations like nothing ever happened between us, like we're just normal sisters who talk regularly. The message is short and generic, the kind of thing you'd send to an acquaintance. I read it, considered responding, then closed the message and deleted the notification. Some relationships are meant to end, and that's okay. I don't owe her a response just because we share DNA. 6 months after Turks and Caicos, I'm sitting on Rita's back porch watching Bella practice cartwheels in the yard, her laughter ringing out. Tom is grilling burgers, the scent filling the air, and Rita brings me a lemonade, sitting down in the chair next to mine. We're planning our trip to their hometown for next month, and Bella is already asking when we can go back to the beach. My phone sits silent in my pocket because the people who matter are right here with me. I have Sunday dinners every week, movie nights, spontaneous coffee dates, and a family who includes me in everything they do. Rita, Tom, and Bella show up for me consistently, celebrate my wins, support me through hard times, and never make me question whether I'm wanted. My life feels full in a way it never did when I was trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Family isn't about blood or obligation or shared last names. It's about who's willing to love you consistently, who shows up when it matters, who makes space for you at their table without you having to ask. I finally understand that, and I'm happier than I've ever been. So, I have to ask you, have you ever had to choose your family? Or found your true home in the most unexpected places? I really want to hear your stories and what you think about mine. Let me know in the comments below.